Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we're going to be discussing the Dallas Cowboys offense and what to expect from them in 2020. If you're new around here, please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So before we get started on talking about the Dallas Cowboys offense in 2020, let's establish what they did in 2019. So they were first in total yards, second in passing yards, fifth in rushing yards, sixth in total points, and they were tied for the ninth fewest turnovers. That shows that the Cowboys offense was elite, and at the end of the day, it was. Yet the Cowboys need to start quickly. They need to score on their opening drive. They only did that 4 out of 16 times last year, and a way to improve offensive efficiency is to score on that opening drive. Last year's offensive coordinator, Kellen, who had success in shaping that Cowboys offense last season, will be 2019's play caller. The Cowboys offense likes to run the football a lot, and with Ezekiel Elliott, you know why they like to run the football a lot. In fact, the Cowboys are one of the more run-heavy offenses in the NFL, and they actually have the most success when they run outside or behind the tackles. Expect more two running back sets in 2020. Mike McCarthy, the new Cowboys head coach, has talked a little bit about copying what the 49ers do with two running backs on the field. If you don't know, the 49ers utilize two running back sets more than any other team, and this is done to create mismatches, but more importantly, it's to fit their style of running the football. The 49ers like to run a wide zone running scheme, which happens to be what Dallas has been good at for the past few years, and they brought in Joe Philbin as their new offensive line coach for next season, and he specializes in a wide zone run scheme. So this run game in Dallas may just get even better in 2020. Yet, Mike McCarthy is not known for running the football, and in fact, he's known for throwing it. Last season, without Mike McCarthy, obviously, Mike McCarthy is the new head coach there, but with Jason Garrett and Kellen, Dallas were in three receiver sets 67% of the time last year, meaning that Cooper, Gallup, and new wide receiver CeeDee Lamb are going to be on the field together a lot. Also, Mike McCarthy is a West Coast offense kind of guy, and that means that his offense revolves around short passing routes that group together to create long, consistent drives with barely any turnovers. McCarthy also likes to throw the football on early downs, and he doesn't rely on the run so much. In his 13 NFL seasons as the Packers head coach, only 5 of those seasons, McCarthy had a running back with 240 carries, meaning that Zeke will probably not get the 300 carries that he did last season. Nonetheless, though, McCarthy likes to have running backs in the passing game, which does fit well with what Zeke can do. Yet, McCarthy went downhill in Green Bay because he failed to scheme receivers open, and he relied too much on their natural ability to get open. Yet, with Kellen as the offensive coordinator, what we saw last year is that he schemed different receiving trees and receiving routes that paired together to open guys up. So him and McCarthy could really take that passing attack to the next level. But I want to go back to that running game for a second. The Cowboys are known as one of the better running teams in the NFL, and I feel like if they try and get away from that in 2020, they may lose some of that identity. Yet, McCarthy has made it clear that he wants to run the ball because it fits what the players are able to do. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott's one of the better running backs in the NFL, meaning that in theory, Zeke will still get carries because that's what McCarthy wants to do. Yet the pass-heavy tendencies of McCarthy's past have to be taken into account. I mean, if you look in 2018, the Packers had one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the NFL, up there around 67% of the time they were throwing the football. So really just look for Ezekiel Elliott, I think, to get a lot less carries than he did a season ago, and the passing game to be a real focal point of this Dallas offense. Yet now let's talk about the offensive players on this team that are going to make an impact in 2020. Let's start with Dak Prescott. He is the leader and quarterback of this offense there in Dallas, and Prescott last season was phenomenal. I'm surprised he didn't make a Pro Bowl because he was lights out. He is a 2-time Pro Bowler in 2016 and 2018, but last year he threw for over 4,900 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions on 65.1% completion percentage. Obviously, there's the contract situation. I don't want to really get into that right this second, but Dak, if he plays like he did last year, and I think he could play even better next year with a new head coach that likes to throw the football in Mike McCarthy, Prescott has the weapons to be a great quarterback in the NFL next year, and I think he's going to establish himself as maybe a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but I think Prescott has that skill set, and he's a great thrower of the football. He throws a really nice football, and he's got Amari Cooper, he's got Michael Gallup, he's got CeeDee Lamb, and he's got a great running game for support. So I think he's got all the weapons next season that he's ever needed to take even that next step next season, maybe throw for more yards, more touchdowns, and less interceptions in 2020. Also in free agency, the Dallas Cowboys added Andy Dalton to back up Dak Prescott. Andy Dalton is not going to take the starting job. By no means is Andy Dalton better than Dak Prescott. But if Dak Prescott ended up going down with injury, Andy Dalton is a legit NFL quarterback who's a 3-time Pro Bowler and has plenty of experience. Last season, he threw for just shy of 3,500 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. And although those stats don't sound good, Dalton has playoff experience. He's experienced as an NFL quarterback. And as a backup, he's going to be one of the better backups in the NFL. As I said, Mike McCarthy doesn't love to run the football, yet with Ezekiel Elliott, he's got a scheme around him. Ezekiel Elliott is one of the best running backs in the NFL. I think he's the second best running back in the NFL, only behind Christian McCaffrey. Elliott is a 3-time Pro Bowler and 1-time first-team All-Pro member, and last year was no different. He got his contract done and 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, and he was also a good force out of the backfield as a receiver. He had 420 receiving yards for 2 receiving touchdowns, and he was just one of the best running backs in the NFL a season ago. As I said before, I don't think Ezekiel Elliott will get his 350 touches that he did last season, but I think 250 carries and 50 catches is something that Ezekiel Elliott could have in 2020. And although Mike McCarthy doesn't love to run the football, Kellen Moore is still the offensive play caller there. So running the football is not going to go completely out the window next season. Zeke's backup is Tony Pollard. Pollard was pretty solid last year in the limited time he played in. He only had 86 rushing attempts for 455 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, and his 5.3 rushing yards per rushing attempt were really, really healthy. Also, he was a little bit solid out of the backfield. He had 15 catches for 107 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. So in theory, if Ezekiel Elliott went down with injury or missed some time, Pollard is a legit NFL running back who proved to Dallas last season that he could be the backup there in Dallas, and he could perform and play well if Zeke didn't play. Now let's go to the strength of this Cowboys offense in the passing game. The passing game last season was great for the Dallas Cowboys. Kellen Moore and Jason Garrett really focused on the vertical passing attack, which has been a focal point of this Cowboys offense for years. Yet with Mike McCarthy, you got to expect that West Coast offense style for him in 2020. McCarthy likes shorter timed routes, and he's not going to really want to count on the vertical passing game. That doesn't mean that they're not going to take shots downfield, but really look for this offense there in Dallas to be meticulous and to be pinpoint to get the best out of Dak Prescott. They've got Amari Cooper, who's one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. I think he's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, and last year was no different. He had 79 catches for just shy of 1,200 yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. And this man is all over the field. He makes catches look easy. He, for the first time in his career, was over 15 yards per reception, which is a really solid and healthy number for him. And look for him to continue to be that number 1 wide receiver there in Dallas. The Cowboys' second wide receiver is going to be Michael Gallup in 2020. Gallup was awesome last year. He was injured for a few games, but when he was healthy, he was lights out. He had 66 catches for 1,100 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. And as a number 2 wide receiver, he's a really, really solid guy to pair next to Amari Cooper. As I said last season, the Cowboys ran 3 receiver sets very, very often, meaning that Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup are pretty much always going to be on the field. And if you look at what Mike McCarthy did in Green Bay, he also likes to have a lot of wide receivers on the field. Therefore, you're going to see a lot of wide receivers in the Dallas Cowboys sets and formations. They also brought in CeeDee Lamb. But before I talk about CeeDee Lamb, I want to talk about Randall Cobb. This offseason, they actually ended up losing Randall Cobb, and that loss isn't going to be that big because they brought in CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, coming out of the draft, I think was going to be the best wide receiver in the NFL draft this offseason. Lamb reminds me of a toned-down DeAndre Hopkins. He's a big slot receiver, can rack up the yards after the catch, he can go up and catch the football, and he's just an athletic, physical, and dominant wide receiver to put in that passing game. In Dallas, I think he's going to be that big slot receiver. I think that's where he's going to shine, but he can also play a little bit on the outside, go up and catch the football, and make plays on the run. At Oklahoma last season, he had 62 catches for 1,300 yards and 14 receiving touchdowns, and he was completely dominant. They used him in tons of spots, and he racked up the yards, racked up the catches, and racked up the touchdowns, and look for him to do the same in Dallas. At the tight end position is Blake Jarwin. Last season, Blake Jarwin quietly had a really solid year. Last season, he had 31 catches for 368 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns with Jason Witten on the roster. But now with Witten no longer on the roster, I think that Blake Jarwin can take the next step. Last year, Jason Witten had 63 catches for 529 yards. And although I don't think Blake Jarwin will take all of that production from Jason Witten's departure, I think that 500 or 600 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns from Blake Jarwin next season is not out of the question. Now let's talk about the Cowboys' biggest asset, which is their O-line. At the left tackle position is Tyron Smith. Smith has been one of the faces of this offensive line for a while now, and he has made this offensive line into one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Tyron Smith didn't play in all 16 games last year. He only played in 13 games last year, but he ended up getting a really good grade from PFF, 76.6, which is lower than we've seen from him in the past, but nonetheless really, really solid. In his 882 snaps played, he only gave up 1 sack, which is great for the protector of Dak Prescott's blind side. Tyron Smith is going to be one of the centerpieces of this O-line, and at the left tackle position, he's one of the best left tackles in the NFL. Now let's move to the left guard position. At left guard, you'll probably see Connor Williams. He had 727 snaps played last year and only gave up 1 sack, which was really solid. He earned a 60.9 PFF grade, which wasn't that great, but he only played in 11 games, and if he played in all 16, I think that PFF grade would have improved. And in his 3rd NFL season next season, I think he could be a better guy to play that left guard position, especially with some of the losses that this offensive line had. This offseason at the center position, the Cowboys ended up losing Travis Fredrick, their longtime center. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, 1-time first-team All-Pro member, and Fredrick was probably the best center in the NFL, and he's going to be missed. He announced his retirement, and he's going to leave a really big hole in the center of that Cowboys offensive line. Yet, I think there are some guys on this roster that could play the center position to fill the void that Fredrick left. One possible guy is Joe Looney. Looney was available for all 16 games last year, only started 1 game, but he's been in the NFL for a little bit. He's been in with San Francisco before and in Dallas, and he's a veteran guy who's been in the league for a little while, and he could be that starting center. My favorite guy to be that starting center would be Tyler Biadasz, who was picked up in I believe the 4th round of the NFL draft. I thought Biadasz could have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick. He was a really solid player at Wisconsin, and he's a really good run blocking center. He did struggle as a pass blocker last year, but nonetheless, I think Biadasz could be the favorite later in the season, maybe to take over that starting center spot as he learns and develops in his first NFL season. Another guy that could possibly get it is Connor McGovern. I don't want to go into too much depth with him, but I really like Joe Looney and Tyler Biadasz to be those centers there next season. At the right guard position, this man needs no introduction. Zack Martin is the best right guard in the league. Martin played over 1,100 snaps last year, gave up no sacks, and he had an 88.1 PFF grade last season, which was one of the best in the NFL. Martin, as I said, is basically the best right guard in the NFL. He's great at opening running holes for Ezekiel Elliott, and he's a good pass protector too. Expect for Zack Martin's success to continue on into 2020, as the Cowboys have been looking to him for a while now to be one of those leaders on that offensive line, and he's a big help on that offensive line unit. At the right tackle position is one of the better right tackles in the NFL in Lyle Collins. He's super underappreciated. He had 1,000 snaps played last year in 15 games, only gave up 2 sacks, and earned an 86.4 PFF grade. Once again, Lyle Collins is a great right tackle. He's going to be a solid guy to have there on the right tackle position, and him and Tyron Smith make one of the best left tackle, right tackle combinations in the NFL. So count Dak Prescott that he's going to be upright next season. I think last season he endured his least amount of sacks ever, and I think that trend can continue on into 2020. As I said, losing Travis Fredrick is going to be really, really brutal. I mean, he was a Pro Bowl caliber center, and anytime you lose a Pro Bowl caliber player, it's going to hurt. But at the same time, I think Joe Looney is a solid replacement, and they picked up Tyler Biadasz in the draft, who could be a solid guy too. Nonetheless, though, I think this Cowboys offensive line will still be among the league's best next season, as they've got 3 really, really all-pro, Pro Bowl type caliber players in Tyron Smith, Zack Martin, and Lyle Collins, who will not only help open running room for Zeke Elliott, but also help keep Dak Prescott upright. All in all, I think this Cowboys offense is going to be really fun to watch next season. It's going to be really interesting to see what Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore are going to come up with next season for this Cowboys offense. As I've talked about, Mike McCarthy likes to have meticulous drives with his West Coast offense. Yet Kellen Moore really showed that the vertical passing game could work last season in Dallas. Therefore, combining the two and still counting on Zeke Elliott in the running game could be a really, really good combo for this Cowboys offense. I think they're going to be up there again next season among the best offenses in the NFL. And although I don't think they're going to be the Chiefs or the Ravens or maybe even the Saints offense, I think they could easily have the 4th best offense next season. So therefore, pencil in the Cowboys offense to be one of the best offenses in the NFL in 2020, as in Mike McCarthy's first year as the Cowboys head coach, there are going to be a lot of things that are going to change there in Dallas. Nonetheless, though, if the Cowboys can maybe get their defense sorted out, obviously they have some holes in the secondary and they're missing a few guys after losing some big names in free agency. Maybe they can return to the playoffs if this defense can perform. Obviously, this offense is going to be what it was last year, if not better. And if the defense can pick up the pieces, then I think the Cowboys have a real chance to beat the Eagles to win the division. Therefore, watch out, Dallas Cowboys fans, and get excited for this Cowboys offense to work in 2020.
Now that you've reached the end of my video, I want to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe as it helps my channel out, and check out my other videos on my channel. Also, you can follow my Instagram, the link is in the description down below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, see ya.